Phương.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. So before we start, um, we have Dr. Hall here, and we also have the chat box. So if during his presentation, if anybody have any questions or need any assistance from us, then please leave the message on the chat box, and somebody will from our team will help you. Okay. All right. So let's start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Martial March Benefit Annual Health and Wellness webinar. As you may know, the current COVID-19 situation is getting complicated and surely affect our work and daily life. In the midst of the COVID-19 heat wave, months of uncertainty and threat to health, social, and financial security has contributed to intense anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Emotional self-regulation is an indispensable part of life and should be considered to apply in daily life of each person as a way to self-prevent COVID-19 affection. We always want to accompany and support you to achieve a comprehensive healthcare journey. In this session, we are delighted to provide to you an experience of self-assessment and self-practice mindfulness. It's designed for your busy work life or during time when our life is turned upside down like now. With high applicability to everyone, we hope you will be interested and consider this like a useful method to gain a peaceful mind. So let's not wait any longer. Please welcome Dr. Nguyen from Mind-Kind Institute with today's topic, the mind-kindness of resilience. Good afternoon, Dr. Nguyen, Martial Mass Benefit, and my doc. Thank you so much for joining us today. The mic is yours. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Phương, for the kind introduction. So in a moment, I'm going to share a slide presentation, but the slide is only to use as a guide for us to have a conversation with each other. And I know that we have over 100 people, so I cannot see everyone. So at any time you have a comment or question, feel free to chat in the chat box, and at some point we'll get to address some of your questions. To begin, I will do an introduction first. But before I do my introduction, I invite us to do a bit of checking in with our bodies. Okay, so begin just stretching the shoulders and the neck. Even if I don't see you, I assume that you're following along, and see if we can use this opportunity to let go of multitasking. Everything else can be taken care of after this hour, I promise that it's still there for you. For this 1 hour, just be here with me and be here with each other, because you may receive something and you may share something that might be very valuable for yourself and for each other. So along the way, keep moving your body and stretching your body so that you really feel into the body. Because the reason why I'm asking you to checking in with your body, because the body knows. Our thinking mind may deceive us, but the body always telling us information about what is it that I need, how am I feeling, what's going on, what's the emotions. And so when we know what the emotion is, we can take care of ourselves better. So into the chat box, I would like for you to type your name, your location, and one word to describe your emotions or your internal weather right now. Meaning, is it cloudy? Is it bright? Is it clear? Is it stormy? Is it hot? What is the condition of your mind and your body in this moment? Into the chat box. Try 3 words: your name, your location, and one word that help you check in with your present moment status. So I will read out a few of these as a way to acknowledge where some of us are: rainy, misty, bright, cloudy, anxious, relaxed, stormy, cloud with chances of storm, murky, hoping. So rainy could be sad, could be tender. Bright could be happy, joyful, excited. Stormy could means a combination of different emotions. The reason why I'm asking us to check in so that we get present. We cannot change what happened in the past, and we cannot really control the future, but we can manage and control the present moment by just knowing it. Okay, so please take another breath with me. So I will check in. Dr. Home, I'm in Bali, and I'm feeling energized. So a very brief introduction. I was born and raised in Vietnam back in the 60s, and then grew up in Vietnam until I was 14, and I was part of the wave of Vietnamese refugees who left Vietnam after the war. Uh, Escaped on a boat and ended up in almost died in the middle of the ocean. Lost for about 19 days, and then ended up in a refugee camp in Thailand back in the 80s. And then I grew up in the United States. And at 22, I told my father that I was going to drop out of college to start a theater company. And I told my father, who's an immigrant doctor in the U.S., and I told him I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an artist. And without knowing what I was doing, I was gathering people, especially Vietnamese and Cambodian and Laotian refugees, gathering people together to tell stories and to have people make sense of what happened. What happened to their lives? How did they end up in America? How did they end up being refugees? And what happened to Vietnam in the aftermath of the war? And so it was a very powerful healing experience that I did in my 20s. And then in my 30s, I also did a lot of work dealing with traumas around the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Part of my work at the time was doing HIV/AIDS prevention because a lot of people were getting sick and ill, especially in the gay and lesbian communities. And so I did that work for a while, so I understand something about the experience of trauma, something about the experience of the challenges of health, mental health, and physical health. And I know a little bit about the experience of living through a war and an aftermath of a war. And I will frame our conversation in a moment, but just to complete the introduction, 10 years ago, I went back to school and get my bachelor, master's, and doctorate all in one swoop in my late 30s into my 40s. And I did my doctorate work at Columbia, and I ended up being a professor there, teaching organizational leadership. And my research was looking at mindfulness and leadership development, how leaders of an organization develop self-awareness and compassion, not only for themselves, but helping others, people in their organization, develop self-awareness and compassion and create a culture uh, of well-being in the workplace. Okay, so that's my 50 something years of life in 5 minutes. Now I'm going to go into a presentation, and along the way, this experience is um, meant to be an experience rather than for you just to listen to me talk. I would like to invite you into an experience in the middle of our conversation. Okay, so let me see if I can share screen. All right, oops, there's my calendar, and here's the presentation, and present. Okay, can you all see my screen? If you can see, give me a thumb up. Give me a thumb up if you can see my screen. Okay, Rosa, you can see. How about you, Carlos? Okay, John, got it. Okay, please take a breath with me. Stretch the shoulders and the neck again, opening up the chest, stretching the spine. Take a few long, deep breaths into your body as a way to regulate and acknowledge how you're feeling in this moment. So this is mind kindness for resilience, mental health and well-being during pandemic. Phương already briefly mentioned that by now we are living in a new reality, that we don't even know how to make meaning of it. So for some of us, it has been a time of um, powerful, powerful change. Very difficult, very painful, and I also assume that some of you probably have gotten to know yourself more in this 1 year than most of your life because of the intensity of our experience of facing the existential threat of our way of life. So please take another breath with me. Along the way, you keep hearing me saying that, and there's a reason for that. Because the breath is always in the present moment. When you notice the breath anchors us in the present moment. We cannot get lost in the past. We cannot get lost in the anticipation of the future. So the present moment, and we're using the breath as a way to anchor us. Okay. Let me see. So here are some mental health challenges, and some of these will be obvious to some of you by now. The feeling of fear, of anger, of sadness, of worry, of numbness. If you experience any of those feelings, give me like a thumb up, like, oh, I can relate to that. Yeah? No? Okay. For some of us, there's a loss of movement and physical contact. There's a loss of connection and community, or at least the loss of what we used to. Some of us have to learn how to develop and cultivate new ways of being in community. The loss of stability due to uncertainty. We don't know when the next shutdown will be and when it's going to be open. When am I going to get to go back? And for me, when I get to go back to the US to visit my family, or when I get to travel to Vietnam and see my friends and my family again, I have no idea. I booked the tickets. It's on hold, but I don't know if it's going to be happen anytime soon. For some of us, experience difficulty sleeping. Some people have reported of having nightmares. Changes in appetites, energy. There's difficulty concentrating and making decisions because there's so many things uncertain. And also there's a lot of reports on the increase of tobacco, alcohol, and other addictive substances. So all of this is something we're living through. Now I'm going to turn it back to my own experience for a moment. And again, this is really my own personal opinion, uh, based on not any kind of scientific research, but based on my own perspective. I really think that we are living through a kind of World War III. Now, I'm not saying that lightly as someone who lived through a war and survived and eventually learned to thrive. That during wartime, I remember, cannot go outside at any time. There's sometimes you have to be inside. Children cannot go to school and see their friends during wartime. When people are sick and die, family members cannot see them or visit them. And when people are dying, you cannot show up at funerals. These are conditions of war times and people being displaced during war times. And I can tell you very briefly, 16 months ago, I ran out of my apartment with 2 suitcases, taking the last flight out of Newark Airport because they was going to close the airport that night. And for me to be with my spouse, I had to make the decision of leaving New York. And it's been 16 months and I have not seen New York, or my life in New York is already fading in the background of my life. So here's the humor, the irony of all of this. I was on Lufthansa and I get an upgrade to business class. And I took a photo and I sent to my partner. I said, 38 years ago, I escaped from a country on a boat, almost died, and ended up in a refugee camp. Now I'm going the other direction. I'm very grateful that my life has been upgraded to business class. I'm sharing that both with a sense of humor and then also sadness. My mother passed away 3 months ago, and I could not fly back to see her. I have not seen my family for over a year. I left my professional teaching work at Columbia to live now a new life in Bali. So in some ways, I know something about what it means to recreate a life as needed. And in some ways, I think all of us, whether we like it or not, will need to learn how to recreate our lives, rethink about our lives in fundamentally new ways. And I think some of you already are in that process. So I will speak very briefly here around trauma and why it's important to name the experience of trauma. And I'll read a quote here. Trauma is not just the result of major disasters. And I think we're living through a major disasters now at multiple levels. It does not happen only to only some people. An undercurrent of trauma runs through ordinary life, shot through as it is with poignancy of impermanence. Nobody is immune. Nobody is immune. All of us experience trauma. Our world is unstable and unpredictable and operates to a great degree despite incredible scientific advancement. outside of our ability to control it. And so I think we're living in a time where so many things feels like it's out of control. And yet there is one thing that we can control. One thing that we can control. How many of you have heard of Viktor Frankl and the book Search for Meaning? Rosa. Rosa, would you be so kind, just unmute yourself and just say a few words of what you know of Viktor Frankl and the book?
Hi, I'm Rosa. I'm from Mexico. Well, I read the book because I thought it was such an interesting way of coping during and after being in a concentration camp, and how he started being a psychiatrist, how he started doing like this research while he was in the camp on what was the difference between the people who would survive and the ones who wouldn't. That was why, the reason I read it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosa. I appreciate your naming his work and his life, someone who experienced probably a horrendous experience. All of his members of his family died during the Holocaust. And he got, when he got out of the concentration camp, and part of his professional life was trying to understand why some people experience traumatic experiences and yet they learn to thrive, and why some people diminished and perished. And part of his research is, he said that it's our ability to make meaning and our ability to choose our attitude is the difference between someone who learned to thrive and someone who get diminished. And so then how do we make new meaning? How do we make new meaning out of our lives right now? By the way, I should be looking directly at the camera, but because you guys are on my side of the computer, so my eyes keep going toward the side here. So I'm going to read through this, and then after that, I'm going to invite us into an experience. So how do we move from trauma towards healing? The beginning of healing is to acknowledge there is a loss. There is a loss that cannot be recovered. Something is gone. So it's important to acknowledge that. Then acknowledge the grief. Acknowledge the fear of uncertainty. And then at some point, acknowledge the gratitude for life itself. So it's a journey that we're on now. We're on a journey. What was used to be so predictable, I go to school and then I get a degree and then I find a career and I go into a job and I climb the ladder and then I do this and that. I get married and I have 2 children. None of that is given anymore. We live in a new world. So first to acknowledge all the hopes and dreams that you used to have may no longer be so. So how do we recreate our lives? So first is to recognize the fight, flight, freeze response in our daily lives. My reaction to the fear. I'm recognizing, I want to fight people for no particular reason. I mean, they're showing airplane incidents of people fighting on airplanes that increase over 1,000%. They call it air rage now. Flight, running away, disappear, isolating ourselves. Freeze, become frozen. Don't we numb ourselves with drugs, with alcohol, with whatever we use to numb ourselves. So recognize that there is a tendency to do that, but not to judge it, just to simply say, I'm noticing this is my reaction. Please take a breath with me. By the way, I usually I speak very gently and soft, but I'm speaking extra loud. Just make sure you all you can hear me. Now, learning to respond rather than to react, and this is connected back to um, Richard Viktor Frankl's work, and of course, so many people have done the work in learning how do we cultivate ability to respond rather than react, because responding is a choice, reacting is non unconscious. We just react, unconscious. Choice meaning I am conscious about choosing this and this and this. So how do we develop this ability to choose our attitude? So I can choose in the moment. I can acknowledge I feel really sad, I feel depressed, and I can choose to accept that in that moment this is what I'm feeling, rather than react by making ourselves bad. What's wrong with you? You're the problem. Get over it. Like all the judgment. So judgment is a kind of reaction. Please take another breath. Cultivating a non-anxious presence through embodied awareness and conscious breathing. What do I mean by non-anxious presence? There's a lot of research in organization and family system that the person who is least anxious has the most impact, positive impact on the system. The person who is least anxious has the most positive impact on a family system or an organizational system. So those of you who are leaders or people who are in influence position, if you cultivate a way of being where you can acknowledge your fear but not acting out of fear, is so how to regulate our emotions. Okay, so we're going to have an experience in a moment. Acknowledging change and accepting the reality of uncertainty. Now, the human ego, as part of our survival, has learned to control and manage, control others, control situation, and that's what the ego does. But sometimes in life, there's something that you cannot control, especially you cannot control others for sure. And sometimes we cannot control how life is changing. So learning to accept change, that, oh, from day to day, something is changing. And something's good may be gone away the next day. Something not so good also may be gone the next day. We don't know. So learning to be with uncertainty is part of moving towards healing. And then the fifth point here on this slide is resourcing gratitude, empathy, and connecting with others. There's always something to be grateful for. The fact that each of us wake up and actually able to turn our computer and listening to me in this moment, something is good that is happening. Even if I could breathe one breath in this moment, something to be grateful for. The fact that I could move my body or move my fingers, or even being aware that I'm alive, something good is there already, to acknowledge that. Then cultivate empathy. Empathy is to understand ourselves, understand that I'm experiencing a range of human emotions and that other people are also experiencing a range of emotions as well. So people are suffering, and so I can have empathy for the suffering of others. And empathy will lead to compassion, will lead to forgiveness, deep understanding, and connecting to others. There's a tendency now, and I think during COVID, because of lockdown, there's a tendency to isolate ourselves. But how do we continue to be in relationship with each other during isolation, during these period where we are in a way forced or obliged to be isolated? And so the fact that all of you and us showing up here, I already know there's a motivation to connect and to learn and to be curious. Okay, so please take another breath with me. So here, I'm just going to name something here. I noticed in my own life in this past year, the quality of my life has improved tremendously because I made a commitment to take care of my mental well-being, take care of my physical well-being. However I can, I take more naps than I've ever had in my entire life. I go for walks whenever it's possible. And I practice in community. So later I will share with you some resources. So hang on there. So now I'm going to give us the next slide. Oops. Okay. So this is the part that I am most excited about, is to share this with you. Mind kindness 8 petals practices. For physical, sorry, I spelled physical incorrectly. Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. So these are 8 different practices that you can do for yourself and you can do with others to cultivate well-being, especially now. So I will talk through these practices, and I'm gonna offer you a short taste of the experience so you know what it is through your own body. Okay, so you don't have to take note because my intention is to share the slides with you. So internal weather. When you first arrive into this room, I asked you, how are you feeling? Give me one word. Some of you said bright, stormy, cloudy, misty, sad, excited, sorrowful, and so on. Acknowledging our feelings just like we acknowledge the weather. Keeping in mind that the weather, like our emotion, is constantly changing, and we have no control over our emotions. We think we have, just like I think I have control over the weather, but no. I mean, I have control over using an umbrella or have a raincoat, but I cannot change the weather. I can take care of myself. So knowing my feelings is important. Then I know how to take care of myself. Intention, this is connected to responsibility. Choosing my attitude. I can choose to be present. I can choose to be grateful. I can choose to be accepting. I can choose to be aware. I can choose to be kind. I can choose to be loving. I can choose any of these attitudes that help me deal with the emotions that I'm having. So please take a breath with me. So right now, I'm going to ask you to say, if you were to choose one word of intention, what would that be? One word of intention. One word of attitude. What attitude you would like to have in this moment? See if you can just type in the chat box very quickly as a way to acknowledge. Because I have the presentations on, so I cannot see your chat. So I just offer you some examples. Being curious is also an attitude. The next petal of mind kindness is inspiration. Who and what inspires me? And the thing that inspires life is breath. Breathing in and itself is inspiring. The word breath, the Greek word, the root word of the word breath is spirit. And that's how we get the word inspiration, expiration. To be inspired is to be in spirit, and to be in spirit means to be with breath, to feel the breath. And so as you're listening to me now, see, you can feel yourself breathe in and out. And see, you can breathe all the way in and then all the way out. Just notice. For most of us, we would not live more than 3 minutes without breathing. We can go without food for many days, without water for at least 3 days, but we can only go for about 3 to 5 minutes without breathing. So the breath is so important, and yet I forget about the breath all the time. So as you listen to me, see if you can keep noticing the breath. Breath is life itself, and it will help you cultivate non-anxious present. The next petal is gratitude. Who and what am I feeling grateful for? If you were to name one thing that you're feeling grateful for in this moment, what would that be? Go ahead and type into the chat box if you can. Just name one thing that you're feeling grateful for. Like in this moment, I'm feeling grateful that I can see Rosa across the world. That's amazing. Something you're feeling grateful for. Curiosity is the next petal, the next practice. When I deal with uncertainty, there's a part of my brain want to shut down. Too much. And the cultivation of being curious is actually the antidote to uncertainty. Children know how to do this naturally. From the beginning, we're all very curious. Oh, what is that? What is that? How to do that? Oh, why is that so? So on. We ask questions all the time. Somehow during our education and our training to become adult, we shut down this ability to be curious, and we become experts. I know this, I know this, I know this. And we forget this ability to wonder, wow, what is it like to have a body? What is it like to have the ability to pay attention? Wow, what is this experience of breathing? Who am I? What am I in this moment? Bring curiosity is the antidote to uncertainty. And curiosity is also allow us to be proactive and creative. We become much more flexible in our thinking and in our relationship to change. Wow, what is changing now? What am I aware of now? So keep coming back to what am I aware of now is a very powerful question. Contentment. So I'm going to invite us into an experience right now. Stretch your shoulders and your neck, opening up your chest. Take a few deep breaths in and out. And see if you can feel your feet on the ground. Feel your feet on the ground. And I'm going to invite you to say some phrases to yourself. as you breathe in and out. Breathing in and letting go. And I'm going to invite us into an experience of reminding ourselves that in this moment, I am okay. And then that I have enough, I do enough, and I am enough in this moment. So as you breathe in and out, repeat to yourself, in this moment, I have enough. I have this breath, I have this body, I have the awareness, I have this life itself, I have enough. There can always be more, but in this moment, I have enough. Breathing in and letting go. In this moment, I do enough. I show up, I pay attention, I'm taking care of myself by paying attention. I'm doing enough in this moment. And in this moment, I am enough. And I accept myself as I am in this moment. And as you are breathing in and out, see if you can soften your belly, relax your belly for a moment, and lean back for a moment. And just noticing what it's like to be enough. We don't know the future, the past is gone. I accept this moment as I am. Okay, stretch the shoulders and the neck one more time. The seventh petal of mind kindness is loving kindness. I wish myself well. May I be healthy and may I be strong. May I have peace of mind. May I have ease of body. So we say kind words. And for those of you, some of you might be having some religious background, it's sort of saying a loving prayer to yourself. But you don't even have to believe anything. You can always say kind words to yourself. May I be happy. And when you wish yourself happy, you can also wish other people happy because you know that people are suffering. It doesn't matter how rich, how wealthy, how good looking, how smart people are, everybody's suffering of something. So I wish you well. Bin, I wish you well. Phúc, I wish you well. Phú, I wish you well. I wish all of us well. And so by holding loving kindness, we also raise our frequency, we raise our consciousness. And when we raise our consciousness, we become powerful. And so even COVID cannot get to us when we are powerful from the inside. So we as a human race, in a way, we have a window of time to wake up because how we used to live create the mess that we are in this moment. We need to change. We cannot go back to the same way we used to be. That's how we get sick at a collective level in the first place. How do we cultivate more kindness in ourselves and kindness with each other and be in relationship with each other? I live in the United States for almost 40 years. It's a beautiful country and it's very challenged at so many levels. So suffering is everywhere. Even in Bali, supposedly paradise. People are suffering here. No jobs for the last 16 months. And people are hungry here now. So it's everywhere. So how to develop more kindness? And the last pedal is letting go. Letting go. Allowing everything to be as it is. And this probably is the easiest practice of all and the most difficult. We let go all the time. We let go with each breath. Imagine if you hold on to the breath, you die. We let go all the time. And eventually all of us have to let go when we die. So how we live in the present moment is also preparing us how to live to the last days of our lives. So letting go is so powerful. And imagine if I drag all the baggage of my life behind me. Impossible. Horrible. I have to let go of something. So learning to let go is so important. I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint here because I'm also aware of the time. I do wish that I have a few hours with all of you. We have about 13 minutes left. So I'm just going to share with you now why the practice of mind kindness, and many of you probably have heard of mindfulness. Yeah, give me a thumb up if you have heard of mindfulness or you have experienced some of it before. It's only like 3-4 people. Is there more? Okay, thanks, Carlos. I see your big thumb. Fantastic. So mindfulness is an ancient practice that made secular for people who live in a modern life. How the term mind kindness, which I'm introducing to you now, is slightly similar to mindfulness but different. Mindfulness is an individual practice. I practice to be mindful. I pay attention to my breath, my body, and so on, which is the first few petals of mind kindness. But also mind kindness from Mindkind Institute, the work that we do is to how to bring these practices into organizations, because most of us are working professionals. We have to communicate with people we have a hard time being with. We have difficulties dealing with bosses and employees, and we have challenges dealing with ourselves when it comes to our work. How do we cultivate and build a culture of well-being in organizations? So it's taking the practice that is individual into being in relationship. How do I communicate more effectively? How do I listen better? How do I express myself in a productive, loving, kind way? Easy to say, difficult to practice when I'm being triggered. When someone's saying something that I don't like, or when I receive a text that make me mad, or an email that have me feel overwhelmed. So on top of that, we're in lockdown. I know that this is happening in Vietnam, and Bali also going into our second week of semi-lockdown as well. So we're not out of the woods. We're far from out of the woods yet. And even folks in the West, especially in the United States, thinking that, oh, we're out of the woods, not yet, because the impact of this will continue for a while. In my experience of dealing with the aftermath of a war, it takes years. So be prepared. develop strong inner life. Develop strong inner life. Your relationship with yourself and your body and with your own mind. What used to be like, oh, I'll deal with that when I get rich, or when I have a better career, or when I have more money, or when I get married or something. What used to be like, I'll wait for that, is no longer so. The fact that each of you have to be at home and deal with yourself is the signal for us get to know ourselves at a deep level. What's important for me? What brings me alive? Who and what am I feeling grateful for? What is the meaning of my life? What is the new meaning that I can create for my life? And so I'm going to share the screen one more time so that you can see this invitation that I'm going to share with you here. Give me a moment. I wish this session was an hour and a half, but given the time we have, we make the best of the time. So here's an invitation. You can join the daily mind kindness practice, and you will get to meet, or I get to meet you at least a few times a week. It happens every day, morning 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Vietnam time, evening 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Vietnam time. And the link you will see at the bottom, and I'm going to ask Phương to share that in the chat box so all of you can have the link to register, so you can sign up to it. It's completely free. And I'll tell you the reason how this started. When I got to Bali, my third week in Bali, I said, oh my God, I am so disoriented. I don't even know what to do with my life. I don't even know where I am. Because Bali, I came to Bali as a tourist, but now I live here. And so I started and it was an experiment of 3 weeks. I said, I'm going to gather people every day for the next 3 weeks, morning and night, so that I can practice with people doing all the 8 mind kindness practices. 3 weeks become 3 months, became 6 months, became a year. Now it's a year and 3 months. We have not missed one day. Twice a day, 1 hour. And the community is beautiful. Right now it's all in English. And so I'm actually looking to work with some people in Vietnam to do some of the translation and some of the facilitation in Vietnamese, and also in other languages. But before we go there, the invitation is for you to experience it first. You can come every day, once a day, twice a day, a couple times a week. But I think it's like building any kind of muscle. If you do it 21 days in a row, you will build a habit. If you do it for 3 months in a row, it becomes your life. If you do it every day for 3 months in a row, it becomes your way of life. But try it for 21 days and then see what happens. So now I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Please take a breath with me. See if you can feel your feet in the ground. In the last few minutes, if you can chat into the chat box questions or one insight or an awareness that you're taking away from this conversation or this presentation. What am I taking away from this presentation that I heard that resonated for me? Please take 1 minute and type into the chat box your takeaway or something you learned from today. So I'm going to read out of these, a few of them as they're coming in. Helpful, seed, a seed of something, joyful, letting go is good, the response versus react, working from home is a chance for you to deep dive into yourself. That's a beautiful perspective. For years and years, I go off on long meditation course. Now I don't have to go anywhere. I just stay home and I practice. What do I want? What is my purpose? Peace. This was helpful. Interested. To let go like we let go every breath. Sometimes we try to hold on to life like a child watching their sandcastle wash away with the tide. When we let go, we accept change, and then we can move on with our lives with more hope and more acceptance. And I see many acceptance. And acceptance is a doorway into true love. If you want to know what love is, begin with acceptance. Acceptance of yourself, whatever you are experiencing. I didn't know that curiosity is the antidote to uncertainty. This month, I've been doing research on all the things I'm curious about, and it brings me joy. Thank you. Please take a breath. A peaceful smile. Never underestimate the power of a smile. I no longer underestimate the power that I have when I choose to smile. If we want to help people to have mind kindness, how do we? Uh, Great question. Um, I'm going to share with you my email at the risk of getting a lot of email into my mailbox. But it's important for me to be able to connect with you. Just know that I will pass you to some colleagues who help answer some of these questions. You can imagine that I sometimes get quite a bit of emails in my mailbox. So the most effective way to get to help is actually help yourself first. Give yourself the experience of mind kindness by signing up and joining the fellowship and practice for a couple of weeks and see what the impact of it is for yourself. Because you cannot help others until you help yourself. You cannot give something that you don't have. So give this to yourself first. Take care of your well-being, then it will be very natural for you to care for others. So on that thought, please take a breath with me. We're at the top of the hour. I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna stay on for another 10 minutes for people. If you have questions, you can stay on. If you need to go, I bid you farewell, and I hope to see you again, maybe on Zoom, and then eventually someday in person. Who knows? The world is smaller and smaller. Um, Thank you for showing up and listen and being present. Take good care. Be well. I'll stay on for people who have questions or comment for me. Phương, you can go ahead and turn off the recording.
Thank you, Dr. Hom. So if anybody have any questions, please let us know, or just leave the comment on the chat box for Dr. Hom. Dr. Hom, how do you feel today?
I feel great. even though I cannot see most people, though even just seeing, Nguyen and John and Rosa and Carlos, your faces and your smile allows me to feel like, wow, I'm connecting with people in Mexico and Vietnam, and we're doing this work. And who knows? Sometimes I think in life, nothing is an accident, everything is intentional. The fact that we somehow meet in this moment, I hold that there's a greater purpose. And some of us will only see each other once and never see each other again. And then some of us will become friends and colleagues, and we get to learn together. So I feel great. Please take a breath with me. When asking, is it possible to have a copy of your slides? Yes. Um, Phương, could you let us know what is the process to share the slides?
Yeah, actually, like we have your slide, yes, for today, and we can send it back to Merchant March benefit team. Yes, and then we can share with everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, and if anyone need the slide, send it to your email. You can also drop your email address to the chat box for us assist you later on.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hom, for today.
Great. Yeah. So, I'm wondering if there is an email list of participant. If I have additional resources like audio recording of practices, I can also share as needed. But I think start with the PowerPoint is good. Any other
Uh,
questions?
sure. I saw that like many on already like drop the email at the chat box right now. Thank you a lot, everyone. Yes. Dr. Hom, do you want to share anything else?
Some of you don't know, but I love to sing. And I've been composing a lot of music here in Bali. Every day I go for long, long walks. I I had lived a very busy life in New York, um, and before COVID, living in New York, almost there is a badge and a badge of honor people have, like, I'm very busy, as if being busy is really cool. You know, I'm busy. I'm so busy. I'm and since I've been in Bali, I just let myself be easy rather than be busy. Just be easy. And for some reason, I find myself being so much more productive and effective because I've become more intentional about what I choose to do and what I choose not to do. And what brings me alive, I choose. What doesn't bring me alive, I don't choose. So just sharing briefly, and when you show up to some of the practices, you will see me there, and we get to know each other more. Um, I hope that out of this experience, that there might be more opportunities where some kind of programs where we get to do something over a period of time, like 21 days of practices together, in a structure where people not only learn how to practice, but also learn the scientific and the research behind all the 8 petals and why it works, and the science behind the neuroscience behind all of it. So that's also my hope, that this is the beginning of a seed for other things. Other questions coming from anyone else? Feel free to unmute or type into the chat box. I think it's okay to stop the recording for now, Phương.
Oh yeah, I will tell the team and update them. Thank you a lot for today, Dr. Hom. We believe that everyone right now, we need